Hey, Guoba here. Combat is instrumental to action games, and although the early game of Zenless Zone Zero may include button mashing and a lack of combat in general, once you progress through the game, you unlock much more difficult combat sections at a higher frequency. The game difficulty starts to spike when enemies no longer have counterable abilities, or when some turn invisible and teleport behind you, or when some just one-shot you. So for beta testers, this may help you out, but for people not in the beta, this video will show you just how fun and crazy combat can get, and maybe you can revisit this on release. Like and sub if you enjoyed or if it helped out, and let's begin. First off, your team is composed of 3 agents. Agents are your units or your characters, and they can be one of 5 different elements: fire, electric, ice, physical, and ether, and one of 3 different attack types: slash, strike, and pierce. Applying enough of an element through attacks on an enemy causes an attribute anomaly effect, so elements are important. These will cause various different debuffs on the enemy, but more on that in their own video because it is pretty long. Some enemy types are also weak to some elements, which increases the damage you do to them with that element. Your team can also have a Bangbu on the side. A Bangbu is essentially a battle pet that has different abilities, and some of them are so good, but we'll also have to discuss them further in a separate video. For building your team, your agents will have additional abilities in their kit, which are passives that can change their kit depending on if your teammates meet the criteria, a bit like Genshin's Resonance. For example, Korin can reduce physical resistance with her chain attack if the team has 2 physical teammates including herself. They are not restrictions to your team building, but rather bonuses if you end up having 2 synergistic units that also enable these additional ability bonuses. I wouldn't ruin your team or overinvest in too many units to enable them. And finally, before we check out the combat and abilities, units have core passives in this closed beta that change how a unit might perform or be built, like Ben, who converts def percent into attack percent in his core passive. Now, entering in combat, we must first go through the UI and what it means for us. On the top left, we have our agents, and the one in the very top left is the one that is on field. You can swap between them at will, and if you enable a keybind in the menu, you can even swap backwards for much easier team management. The green bar is their HP, and once that drops to 0, you can no longer use that agent in the fight. There are also no healers in combat in Zenless Zone Zero, and instead you must dodge, parry, and counter your way to victory. The bar underneath is the energy bar. Every agent has the same energy cap of 120, but some have different activation costs than others. This energy is used for your X special, an enhanced version of your special, or your skill in Genshin and Style Rail. This won't be used for your ultimate ability. You'll gain this passively depending on your energy regen stat, whether you're on field or off field. For the agent on field, you of course can generate bonus energy through attacking. This is through basics, dash attacks, and dodge counters, which we'll all see in a bit. There are also some energy containers throughout stages. Swapping through agents at the right time and using their energy will mean lots more damage and overall a more optimal battle experience. On the enemy UI, we have their HP of course, but just under is their Daze bar. When enemies are hit, they will accumulate Daze, and the amount of Daze applied is dependent on your attacks, as some attacks have much stronger multipliers. You also have the impact stat, which increases the amount the enemy accumulates from your attacks. After maxing out the Daze bar, the enemy will be stunned. This will crowd control them, but will also enable you to start activating chain attacks after hitting a stunned enemy with a heavy attack, as we will see. The enemy will also receive 150% of the damage they normally would, and this can be increased. So stunning the enemy not only provides survivability benefits, but also a very big damage increase, much stronger than Star Rail's 1.11 times increase. This mechanic is very needed in combat to defeat the enemy and to survive encounters. So now onto abilities. Every agent has every ability type, so 2 completely different agents will both have their basics. They'll both have dodges, specials, ultimates, and their own core passives, but of course they will be different in some way. On top of that, some agents will have different variations. Like Ellen doesn't just have a normal dodge, she has extra things on top that define her and change her from the other agents. Now before we talk about abilities one by one, let's talk about the chain attack, which can't be activated out of nowhere with a button like the rest. So when you daze an enemy and then hit them with a heavy attack, you'll cause a chain attack to occur. You'll have a quick time event where you choose an ally to swap in, making them do their chain attack. This itself is a heavy attack and will then let you keep chaining attacks on the enemy. Chain attacks do a ton of damage, and alongside the bonus damage multiplier from an enemy being stunned, are going to contribute greatly to beating bosses. Against normal enemies, when dazing them, you'll have one chain attack. This might do enough daze with your AoE attack to another enemy to cause more chains, but regardless, versus normal enemies, you'll have one chain attack. Against elites, you'll have 2 chain attacks, and against bosses, you'll have 3 whole chain attacks, looping back to the original unit if played right. Now, the first ability starting from the left is our basic attack. This will actually be used a lot due to how energy and our ultimate works. Basics are consistent combos of damage, and every agent seems to have a combo of at least 3 hits in their basic attack string. Some agents can end up having extra elemental attacks in them, for example Anbi, who can do some lightning damage in her combo. And some agents can hold the basic button to do a charged variant, like Lycaon, who gains bonus damage and does ice damage during his charged basics. From what I can tell, the last string of a basic attack string is usually a heavy attack, enabling you to do chain attacks. The next button, to the right, is the dodge button. Pressing it does a short dash and you are invulnerable during it. Dodge has a short cooldown when used, and can be used as an effective mobility tool in fights. The first thing you can do during a dodge is a dash attack. Attacking during a normal dodge will make you perform this dash attack, which is just a simple attack for most agents. Some agents though can chain this into their basic attack combo, like Ben for example, and since it has a higher multiplier than his first basic, it's quite nice to do. And then of course, you can use it to dodge enemy attacks. Many enemies will indicate when they attack with an orange or red glint appearing on them. When performing a perfect dodge by evading this hit, you enter a slow motion mode, called Vital View, for a couple seconds. If you end up attacking during this slow-mo state from a dodge, you perform a dodge counter for some nice quick counter-attack damage, and you'll be invulnerable yet again during this counter. A dodge counter will also result in a heavy attack. The special is the next button across. Every unit has a special and an X special, which is essentially the better and cooler version. Specials won't generate energy that count towards your X special and are just used for whatever utility they provide or for a heavy attack effect. You really don't end up using your normal special that much. When you do get enough energy, you can enable the X variant, which will deal much more damage and daze and often provide bonus effects. For example, Nicole, who shoots out a black hole in her X special, but not her regular special. Some units also use their X to enter certain states and enhance their other abilities, like Anton, who enters a burst mode. Some units can also hold their skill for added damage, it really depends. Now we have the switch button. You can switch normally as stated before and it will cycle forward through your units. You can also swap backwards with the keybind too. If you press the switch button instead of the dash button, when an enemy is about to strike you, you will swap, but the unit that swaps with you will perform a defensive assist or an evasive assist. An orange glint on enemies' attacks means you can perform these assists, but a red one means you can't and you'll instead dodge out of the way. Melee units will perform a defensive assist, meaning they will parry the attack and inflict some daze. Ranged units will perform an evasive assist. They won't parry and instead dodge out of the way, but enter the vital view state, the slow motion state. You'll have 3 charges of these special assists. If you swap without these charges, you won't do these assists, and instead dodge out of the way. You can regain these charges by performing chain attacks on enemies. Then after using a defensive or evasive assist, you can attack and it will perform an assist follow-up attack. Finally, if you mess up your timing or just get bonked in fight, pressing the switch button gets a new feature. You'll quickly swap out your current unit with your next one, and the unit that swaps in will perform a reactive assist instead. You'll quickly reset your tempo and do some damage at the same time. The next button is finally our ultimate. When attacking enemies, you will accumulate decibel rating. Stuff like chain attacks, assists, follow-ups will build up additional decibel rating, and causing effects like stunning an enemy with daze build-up, or causing an attribute anomaly will give you even more. At 3000 decibel rating, you can launch an ultimate, and you only get one ultimate you can launch when you do max this out, so choose your agent wisely. They all do a ton of damage, a ton of daze, and it won't matter too much, but some still have additional bonuses, and you will probably want a certain agent to use their ultimate depending on the team. So that's all for how combat works with your abilities. There are additional mechanics I will address in an advanced combat guide, but I want to try and find everything I can before I start that one up. To summarize, you have basic attacks, you have specials and their X forms, you have dodges which can turn into dodge counters or dash attacks, you have your ultimate, you have chain attacks, and you have assists, defensive and evasive or reactive, as well as an assist follow-up. Some units will have very different ones over others, and the game has lots of possibilities. I hope you all enjoyed the first Zenless video, and there's lots to come, so like and sub for more. Thanks for watching, and have a Guoba day.